Hi, and welcome to Full Circle. I'm Emily Wilmson, and we're here to talk about sustainability. Today we have with us Joe Frank, our Director of Social Sustainability. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
We have Lucinda Smith, who's the Director of Environmental Services for the city. Welcome, Lucinda.
Thanks, Emily.
And we have Josh Burks, who is the Director of the Economic Health Office. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you, Emily.
And so we're here today really to talk about the triple bottom line and talk about how the three departments that you three represent make up the the sustainability services area. So why don't you talk a little bit, Joe, let's start with you, a little bit about what your department does and how you fit into that division.
Well, that's a good question, and when I tell folks I'm the Director of Social Sustainability, often I get this glaze across their eyes, because it's a term that's not real well known or understood. Mm-hmm. And so I've often explained that it was created for two or three reasons. One is there's a number of social issues that the City Council faces each year around affordable housing and homelessness, about poverty, about children, about child care. And previous to the department being created, it was addressed by a variety of different departments across the city, and the council wanted someone somewhere to have the X on their back, so when an issue that they wanted to address, they knew who to go to and who would take care of it. I think another sort of reason was that in the 2010 update of our comprehensive plan, we added some new policies and some new focus areas around social, around healthy communities that was not in the plan before, and I think that's the council wanted to see those policies implemented. And then I think the other part of it was to finish this triple bottom line and have a social component to the discussion of triple bottom line.
Okay, great. And Lucinda, how does your group, Environmental Services, fit into this picture?
Well, there are several things that we work on, but to provide a little bit of background, the Environmental Services Department was formed at the beginning of 2012, and originally we were part of the Natural Resources Department, but in creating this triple bottom line service area, sustainability services, Environmental Services was created, and we work on issues having to do with air quality, climate action planning, including both how to reduce greenhouse gases and also thinking about climate preparedness and adaptation. We work on solid waste reduction and recycling initiatives. We do sustainability education and outreach, and we also are very involved in reporting and tracking our progress that the citizens and businesses do in terms of environmental health. So we work on carbon accounting, and then we also work on collaboratively with utilities the Fort Zed project. So there are many different aspects of the environment that we work on. And in general, what we do is, we plan for the future, we provide information and education, and we try to engage the public and inspire action, and then we track and report progress.
Okay, great. And Josh, obviously you're the last piece of the three-legged stool. What does economic health have to do with triple bottom line?
Well, I think, again, we sort of predate these sustainability service area, but we're looking for a home, I think, about the same time that the sustainability service area was being developed, and really bring to the group a perspective that, one, shares the voice of the business community and their view on how the community is developing and growing, but also I think we bring that economic perspective, which is broader than just representing an individual business. Tactically, we work with businesses to support them in their retention and expansion here in the community, as well as we work on redevelopment. And redevelopment is one of those key areas where I think it's actually very, very easy for us to conceive of and see some outcomes that are related to triple bottom line, because we're taking assets that are basically either blighted or underperforming in our community and helping them have another productive role within the community in terms of development, and then looking at how we do that responsibly as well. So not just for financial gain for the community, but also for the long-term fitting in with whether it be city plan, whether it be identifying affordable housing opportunities, whether it be putting in practice new green building practices, or even trying out new ideas. So those are some of the things that I think we do within this realm. And then again, as each of us does, we sort of represent that economic perspective as well in the dynamic discussion that becomes kind of figuring out how you get the optimal results in a triple bottom line viewpoint.
Okay, so maybe we need to back up and say, what do we mean when we say triple bottom line? Who wants to take that? What's a simple definition that people can relate to?
Well, I'll take a stab at it. Triple bottom line really refers to looking at an issue through three important lenses, the lenses that are represented by these departments, but that also are worked on across the entire organization, which are social health, environmental health, and economic health. And so it's when we look at the triple bottom line, previously it was not uncommon to look at just the bottom line, which is the economic bottom line. So projects could be evaluated from simply a financial aspect. But it's very important and informative to look at things through all perspectives. How does one policy or program or project impact and play out on the social health of the community, on affordable housing, on what kind of impact does it have on the environment, what kind of impact does it have on economic health in the business community. And as Josh mentioned, when we look at things this way, and this is something the organization is doing increasingly, you can sometimes identify opportunities if there's a weakness in one area to mitigate or fix it and have a more robust and stronger project overall coming forward.
Great.
Right, and I guess I'd add to that in many circles or communities, triple bottom line, or even historically, it's been thought of, how do you trade off, in economic gain for environmental stewardship, or social gain for economic, or vice versa. And I think a big part of the approach that we're trying to take collectively as a group is think about triple bottom line as really strengthening outcomes or optimizing outcomes, as opposed to it being more of a scale where one side has to lose for the other one to win. Rather, we're looking for those opportunities where you have the sum is greater than the parts kind of environment, and you end up with stronger outcomes. And I think so when we talk about triple bottom line, it's not just traditional thinking, it's bringing those viewpoints together to actually reach further, I think, is a big part of it too. So.
Joe, anything to add on that front?
No, actually, you did a good job of summarizing it. I think looking at in the city of Fort Collins, it's been in part of our DNA to look at the environmental part for years, and it's very strong. And I don't think there's a project these days that doesn't go through without looking at I think economic is starting to get into the conversation.
Right.
But I think the social is sort of the newest part
Absolutely.
of it. But it's yet so important for the future of our community and our existing residents, not to ignore that part of it when we're making decisions. But it is a balance, and I think it's actually thinking. TBL has created some pretty innovative projects.
It seems to me, and maybe this is just a perception and not reality, but that sustainability is a bigger hot-button topic here in Fort Collins than it is many other places. Why is our community rallied around this notion of a sustainable environment, economy, human health? What is that about?
Well, I think it's as Joe said, it's a little bit in our DNA. I think that when you talk to the average citizen in Fort Collins, they're long-term oriented. They're not just short-term gain and focus. I think the fact that it's such a great place to raise a family, and that so many families do come here to raise their kids, I think that all sets a mindset of thinking about the next generation and thinking about long-term. We have a great place, but how do you maintain that for the long term? And I think that shows up in the way we talk about economic health. We don't say economic development, we say economic health. I think that it naturally has a focus on helping us think long term. And I think it's just it seems to be a value of the community, and as Joe said, in the DNA of our community. And I think that's why it's taken root here. I think that's also why we have this opportunity to think in a little bit more creative way. I mean, we're the only city that we know of that's created an actual physical, organizational structure that mirrors the triple bottom line, with each of the three departments under one, form of leadership, working together, working collaboratively.
Yeah.
I'd like to just add a little bit to what Josh said, which is I agree completely that it's the quality of place and the quality of life that we have here that citizens appreciate and value, and that does support long-term thinking. So I guess I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and actually, what Josh said reminded me of something too, that we've won a national award from Transforming Local Government for forming the Sustainability Services area. And now we're getting some additional national recognition with Mayor Wyckoff serving on President Obama's task force on resilient communities. Is that, and Lucinda, you were just out
Right.
of DC with her. What
I
can you tell us a little bit about that?
had the good fortune to join another staff person in accompanying the mayor to the first meeting. It's one of 4 meetings. As you mentioned, she was appointed to the President's Task Force on Climate Preparedness and Resilience. And so this is a really important opportunity, not only for Fort Collins, but for our entire region and even the state, to provide input to this question that the administration is asking. What barriers and what federal programs and policies can be improved to help local, regional, and state governments really become more prepared? So it has to do with looking at, provision of best practices, what kind of data do we need, what kind of policy or programmatic barriers exist. And so we are going through the mayor. She will be involved in gathering input from our own city organization, experts and stakeholders within our community, and then on out into the state and the region. So it's really an opportunity to shine a light, I think, on some of the issues that we face in Fort Collins and in the Rocky Mountain region, having to do with the changing climate, which are different than the issues that coastal communities face, but no less important.
Right.
Great. So along those lines, what are some of the projects that we're doing in the sustainability services area that might help us explain what we're doing here in Fort Collins, how we're helping with climate preparedness? Joe, do you want to start
Sure.
and talk about some of your projects?
Sure. Well, social sustainability is sort of in its infancy and trying to find itself, trying to understand what it wants to look like and be like over the next 5 to 10 years. So we have 3 projects underway that are going to help us define it. One is a gap analysis. The council has asked us to look at the community and understand the social issues and where are the gaps and what should be the city's role in those gaps. And then that's going to lead to later in 2014 a strategic plan, which will lay out a work program for the city in terms of social sustainability, work plans and projects over the next 5 to 10 years in terms of what should be our role in social sustainability. And then that project is going to be followed up by a comprehensive look at how we do our allocation of funding. My department has makes loans and grants to affordable housing developers and human service agencies. We have a combination of federal and local funds, about $2.5 million per year. And so we want to understand what's the best way to allocate that funds to produce the best results, and that'll all be based upon that, what that strategic plan says our focus ought to be, and what the gap analysis says what the role should be of the city. So 3 really important projects that, for my department and for the city.
Right. Okay, great. Lucinda, how about you? What are some things you guys are working on?
Well, there's several things, but I'd like to mention three. One of them has to do with the issue we were just talking about, addressing climate change. And so, as you may know, Fort Collins has been committed to reducing our community greenhouse gas goals since 1999, and we've already been through 2 iterations of creating a local community climate action plan. But right now and into next year, we are in the process of evaluating whether our long-term community greenhouse gas reduction goals are really adequate. Are they the right goals for our communities? So we're looking at the greenhouse gas goals, and we're doing this in close conjunction with the energy policy update, because the city has also had an energy policy for since at least 2003, and it's time to update that. And there's very significant overlap between greenhouse gas emissions and energy, because now we're defining energy in our community more broadly than just the generation of electricity, but it's also including natural gas and transportation. So this is a very exciting opportunity, and then following that we will be updating our climate action plan, because a lot has happened since the last climate action plan in 2008. In particular, the climate science just continues to say how it's even more important and urgent that we work to both reduce our emissions and then also prepare for a changing climate. So we're working on climate mitigation, which is reducing emissions, and climate adaptation planning within the climate adaptation is within the local government. So that's one area. Another area is going to be following on an action that our city council took just recently, which was they set a vision and approved a goal to achieve zero waste in our community by 2030. And that's an exciting new vision, since we have recently achieved our 50% waste diversion goal. And with that will come a lot of actions and opportunities for our community having to do with increasing waste diversion opportunities, including over time with hopefully with regional partners, creating an organics composting facility, and then also creating universal opportunities for everyone to have recycling, including multifamily. And then the third thing I wanted to mention is the work that we're doing on green building. And so green building is clearly a multi-dimensional, multi-departmental type of initiative, but what's exciting is we're kind of broadening the definition of building from what you might call sticks and bricks out to not only the site, but even the neighborhood. And as you do that, it really starts to open up what the meaning of green building is. It really looks at a lot of the issues having to do with how sites are developed, infill and refill development, so as well as increasing the efficiency of our existing buildings. So there's lots of exciting opportunities coming there.
That's great. Josh?
Well, I mean, we don't have much going on in our department. I mean that in jest. Obviously, we've had a couple of big projects this year in 2013. The expansion and retention of Woodward in our community is one. And the ongoing conversations we're having around the redevelopment of Foothills Mall and the eventual moving forward with that, as well as a number of little projects as well. I think the interesting thing is, now that we have this structure in place, as we've looked at some of these bigger projects, particularly in our office, we've been able to leverage the expertise as well as the viewpoints of our colleagues in environmental services and social sustainability as well, to try to think about how do we think about the projects that we're working on in a different way. I think they're a big part of the Woodward expansion and that site, and the fact that we're getting 30 acres of new natural area right along the river to be able to restore habitat. That to me again is a demonstration of how this triple bottom line thinking has shown up in the projects we're doing. Move over to the Foothills Mall project, and we had a lot of input from the environmental services, our colleagues in environmental services, on how to encourage that project to really manage its deconstruction, its redevelopment, the actual construction of the site in a more environmentally responsible way, and then also, even with partners in stormwater and things like that, how do we design the overall, stormwater management of the site so that it is more long-term focused, it manages quality on site, those sorts of things. So I think we are trying to branch out, and I wanted to add to Road to Zero Waste. It was an opportunity for my office and a couple of my colleagues inside of Economic Health to provide some input to the environmental services group when we were looking at Road to Zero Waste and talking about how do we help to have that discussion in a way where people, I begin to see in a very natural way the aha, which is by diverting more of our waste, we need a new landfill. We have less dependency on needing a new landfill, which is a significant capital cost, and we have less dependency for individual, users on the fees that they have to put towards throwing away their waste, and now they have other options. And so, it's been an opportunity where we've been able to work together. So I think we're starting to see some cross-pollination.
Also, just mentioned in the mall, the recreation center
Absolutely.
was a great addition to that project to provide, places for employees
Right.
to exercise, or the people in the neighborhood to go to.
Exactly.
And then the mall also generated, I think, some really good discussion around affordable housing and child care
Right.
down in that area, and
Right.
and I think it's going to lead to some interesting projects
Right.
over the years.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an aspect of the redevelopment agreement on the mall in particular that says it gives us a window to come forward with a plan and an ordinance or a requirement for affordable housing, but they've agreed to whatever that future plan is already. So it's set the stage there, and then the $4.8 million recreational facility is great. I also think about the initiative that you and I have been working on, Joe, around local foods
Yeah.
as another
A lot
great
of
opportunity.
Collaboration.
Yeah, and that's not just about creating a more locally sustainable food economy, but it's also about creating access to fresh produce for lower income individuals. I mean, a lot of what's already happened in that space is with community gardens has been doing some great things
Right,
there.
yeah.
And it's really how do we branch that out and grow it further.
Yeah, and has the environmental impact of fewer trucks.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's a
yeah,
great
and
example of
shipping and
a
food.
triple bottom line
Yeah.
issue where there really can be triple wins.
Right. And I would say I feel like we've been nibbling at the edges as we've been coming together as a team, and now what's really cool is we're starting to see opportunities where the projects themselves are not projects that fit in any one person's domain. They're really projects that are at the middle of that sort of confluence of the three perspectives.
Yeah, that's great.
And you can't tell that we get enthusiastic about these projects. I mean, these are the kinds of things that make the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Right.
To think about the opportunities
Yeah,
and
right.
and the new connections that come together. And I want to tell you, that's unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
That's
going to
great.
mention similarly, it's the projects can provide an opportunity, but what we're seeing more and more, as you said, Josh, is that we can share expertise and also contacts and connections. So, for example, the Healthy Sustainable Homes program and a lot of the contacts that your staff have with different social groups have found a way to connect, and that just broadens our networks overall. And so there's just multiple kinds of benefits as we begin to further and further integrate our work.
Right.
And that's a great segue to wrapping up today. Can each of you talk just really briefly about how can the public get involved in some of the projects you're working on? Because all these sound very exciting, but what are some opportunities, like Joe, the social gaps analysis?
Right.
How can people give you feedback about that right now?
Well, there'll be public events. We've already had on the gap analysis 2 public events like that, and there'll be more to come. There'll be the gaps analysis report will be published on the city website around the first week of January, and there's an opportunity for input through the city's website, and we'll be having public meetings, and we really hope to get a lot of input.
Okay.
So it'll be a very much an open process, and in the analysis of the allocation process, we'll be using focus groups and having websites and generating information. So there'll be lots of opportunities for folks who are interested to get involved.
Okay, great. How about
Well, just as one example, as we work on the greenhouse gas goals and then especially the climate action plan, we would be doing the same kind of thing in terms of open houses. But I'd also like to kind of build on the model of outreach that's been done for the strategic plan, where it really involved going more to the various stakeholders instead of asking them to come to you. And to whatever extent we can do that, we'd like to try to do that. And then I want to quickly just put in a plug for the environmental web portal, which is not just about what our service area does, but it's intended as a portal to highlight environmental programs and initiatives all across the city. So it's fcgov.com/enviro. Great way to just get the highlights of what's available in the environment.
Right. Well, and I think our project work is pretty episodic, so as they come up, we have different forums for the public to get engaged. I think one of the things that we see as a big part of our strategic planning for 2014 is I think we're going to be continuing to have opportunities for discussion and seeking public input on our approach to redevelopment, particularly as it relates to the Midtown area. We're starting to kick around some new ideas on how we can really, I think, bring some focus and actually some effort and some progress to that particular area of our community. So I would say nothing definitive at this point, but look to hear more either on renewfortcollins.com, which is the redevelopment website, or even on fcgov.com. Whenever we have opportunities, they'll be posted there.
Okay, great. I also want to say a special thanks to Joe Frank, who's retiring at the end of this year after 35 years of service to the city. So thanks, Joe. And
Thanks, Joe.
Yes, thanks, Joe.
thanks, Lucinda and Josh, as well, for joining us. And that's all we have for today. And we'll look forward to seeing you next month on Full Circle.